You're joining me today on the porch of the Gallupville House. Some of you with local ties may remember the Gallupville House was added to the National Register of Historic Places. It's a real gem in this community and is the primary focus of the Gallupville House Incorporated. If your connection to the Town of Wright, the hamlet of Gallupville, or the Gallupville House encompasses the years roughly 1940 to 2003, then the name Chester Zimmer is almost certainly familiar to you. Chester was a poultry farmer in town, operated a very large chicken and egg business right in town. He was very active in many aspects of the community, served for years as the local historian. He was a founding member of the local fire department. And he had a passionate interest in local history. Now, Chester and his good friend, the Reverend Bob Smith, are going to take us back in time and talk about the history of this grand old building.
Chester, today we're going to be talking about a famous building in our town, probably the most prominent building we have in town, known as Gallupville House.
Right.
And you've been involved with the Gallupville House, I know, for a number of years, so why don't you begin to give us, where did this house come from and how did it begin, do you know?
Well, I know quite a bit about the early history. I have lots of notes here that I'll refer to. It was May 9th, 1833, when a John Schoolcraft bought 1 acre farmland from Frederick Schaefer for $120. He sold the property in 1842 for $3,000. We feel since he built the first hotel in Galllupville, what it looked like, we do not know. It burned May 4th, 1871. It was then known as Clark's Hotel and owned by Weidman Dominic. It was rebuilt immediately. Now to go on, in 1873 it was known as the Gallupville House, and in 1878 the Galllupville Hotel.
This is the one that was built in what year?
1872.
But we do know that there was a prior building there.
That's right.
And it burned.
And it burned.
All right.
I don't know what it looked like. Jacob Snyder purchased the property in 1885, and it was a popular hotel owner until 1904, which was 19 years. We know Jacob Snyder made extensive repairs and additions to his hotel in 1890. Now take a good last look before Mr. Snyder made his changes. Here we see the changes. This is about a 1900 picture. The side walkway is removed. Addition is added on the back and the construction connection to the hall on over the sheds. Road shows, village shows, and dances were held here.
Let's pause. The balcony that went around here,
That's right.
that's gone. And then there was a roof here, and then there was a railing around here where people could walk out.
That's right. That's
and
all
that's
gone.
gone.
That's all was changed.
All right.
And of course, here's the sheds where the travelers could put their horses under and wagons when it was at the hotel. Upstairs here it was a dance hall, meeting room, for where they had public shows, and it's connected here. In the back here, it's all connected together. Here you see some changes.
It's been painted.
This picture was copied with the date 1893 with a list of all the people in the picture. I have a list of all these people that's in this picture here. There's a lot of people here together that day for that photograph when that photographer was here. I have a list of people in my files. I remember some of them. The picture was loaned to me to copy by Mrs. Eva Shell Cornwell. She was a Shell before marriage. She was born 1888 and lived to be 99 years old. She was a little girl on the porch railing. There's a little girl here, probably can't see it.
That's her right there.
That's it. Her mother and grandmother are there with her. The grandfather, Jacob Snyder, is in the wagon. There was a man in the wagon.
This is Jacob Snyder right there.
He was the owner. Her mother and father lived and worked here. She was born in the old hotel. That's quite an important old picture, and she told me a lot about the old hotel, and we're going to look at that a little later on. Still about the same date, there's another picture taken from another angle. Notice the kerosene lamp here, vines here over the porch, and there's still the same wagon, man, the wagon, the photographer just moved around.
Yeah, it looks like Jacob Snyder in there again.
And here's the sheds,
Right.
the old hall.
Looks like it had been painted. It looks in good shape.
Well, sure it would have been, then he would have had it all repaired. Now we look at, this is a very poor picture. Very, very poor picture to copy. And it was loaned by another member of the Snyder family. What's so significant is here's the hotel. Here's a barn over here. The barn comes down all the way down here towards the road, and this is about where today's memorial monument is. There was really a hotel yard in here. These buildings were used by Mr. Snyder for his stock and for his horses that he would rent to people in wagons to travel around when they travel, when salesmen would come here.
Just a minute, Chester. Let me point out. This shows only the end of this. This goes on behind this building here, and it's where the dances were held on the second floor, and then they parked the buggies down below here. We can't see it because the building's in the way.
Yeah.
But then you're showing us that in addition to that, they put another angle on, and these came clear down to the road, so that this formed an inner court, like
That's right.
on the side there, and people, here's a buggy parked over here. That's very different. So this is a later picture because they had added all of this to it.
Well, here's an unusual picture taken from another angle. Here's the old hotel. Here's the corner store. And here was a store that was directly across the road from the corner store. Notice this crosswalks here are stone. Of course, this is all dirt road at that time. And time goes on. This is a 1913 picture. We know the date of it. When John Barrett was owner. There are two young foxes here. And this pole here is a telephone pole. Telephones have come through now. This is a telephone pole, not lights yet. But here's foxes.
So that's an animal cage.
Animal cage, just for
And it's two live foxes in there running
just
around.
for publicity to get people to stop. And
All right.
now the hotel is closed and in need of repairs. Probably about 1920 when the Orion Lodge bought it.
I see the shutters are closed. All right.
It's closed,
foxes
it's
are
closed
gone?
up. The reason it closed up, the hotel business went into decline during the period of, from newspaper items, during the period from 1910 to 20, there was a decline in hotel business because then prohibition was coming in, or getting really thinking about it. They would vote whether a town stayed dry or wet. If a town voted dry,
Put the hotel
put the
owners
hotel out of business because they couldn't sell liquor.
All right.
And if it voted wet, then the hotels would be in business.
All right.
So that had a factor into it from what I read in the paper. Here's a 1921 picture now owned by the Orion Lodge. The sign as their name is up there, I believe. Is that, don't I say Orion Lodge right there?
Yes. There it is.
And they completely rebuilt it inside. The ground level was rented, that's the downstairs here, was rented at that time to the Town of Wright for meeting headquarters. Main floor was for dramas and entertainment, dancing.
Now wait a minute, let's stop there. You said it's for drama and dancing.
Here's the main
This would
hall.
be where the town hall met, board meet. But the hall up here has got a stage on
That's
it.
right.
And it's suitable for large gatherings
Yes,
like that.
yes.
That isn't a hallway in the clerk's office and all that.
No. Then upstairs, the lodge built over, and they had the dining room up here and kitchen in the back. And their big
Okay.
lodge room was over on this side,
Okay.
the big meeting room. I remember all that when I was growing up. My father was a member of the lodge. Soon after the lodge had it, they advertised, and somebody came along, I guess his name was James Campbell, hired the hall, and had dancing lessons. How about that? This is an April 1921 advertisement.
Boy, I bet you some of the churches had a fit.
And I can remember hearing about this. Of course, I wasn't big enough to have anything to do with it. but I think my wife was a little older. I think she went to those dancing lessons. I remember hearing about that later on.
Let's catch this. They were doing the foxtrot, the
Yeah.
jig, the waltz, the
Yeah.
clog, hesitation, Highland dancing, round dancing, simplified method, 8 lessons for $5. Waltz and foxtrot were guaranteed. Dancing every Monday evening, Oddfellows Hall, Gallupville.
This is a picture of the old curtain that's up there and still up there, advertising on the, I can remember all this, different advertisements from Schoharie business people and some local, and that was an advertising gimmick.
So when you would go in the front steps, you would walk into the hall, and this is be where the dancing lesson was given. This is actually a stage, and this is a curtain.
Well, I can remember the curtain being down, sitting there as a youngster, waiting for a drama or a show to start, and of course all you would see is the curtain. You read this, you sit there maybe for half an hour, this is all you'd see. Well, when it's got time to put on the show, the curtain went up.
And the curtain went up and the show was on.
The show was on.
There you go.
It's now 1973. It all is now owned by the Town of Wright. It's obsolete for their needs and talk of tearing it down. So there was considerable jabber going around the town after they moved and made their facility down at the municipal building was built. So that all was all changing, and this hall was obsolete and for their use, and there was talk of tearing it down.
The town was talking about tearing it
Yes,
down.
the town
Actually,
board.
the town possessed it at this point. All right. Gallupville House being repaired in 1976.
Yep, this is another story. It was July 31st, 1975. As a town historian and interested in the old history, I wrote the town board urging them to think about saving the old hall as the only outstanding historical building left in the village. How about making some repairs and keep it in stable condition? There was considerable community interest shown, and in December 1975, the town board had an architect from New York State Council on the Arts. His name was John Mesick. He came out from Albany and made a survey of the building at no cost to the town. He was paid by the Council on the Arts in New York City. Mr. Mesick found it basically sound and recommended to be saved. To go on, earlier in the bicentennial year, there was 2 committees appointed by Supervisor John Funk. One the Old Hall Committee, and the other the Bicentennial Committee. Late in the spring, the 2 committees joined together, and out of this came the Town of Wright Bicentennial Celebration, or Balloon Day. It was on September 18th, 1976.
We can see that there's been work here, that the steps are removed, and we can see that a lot of work has been done out here as this area has been excavated. I believe some of the foundations had to be shored up there.
Yes, and we've had work on the foundation on the other side of the building too. This is, the 2 or 3 here is all the same, and now we come to this picture in the front, and that shows the front angle. And here we are coming up to Balloon Day.
There you go.
This was here in the village, if you can read it, 1776, 1976, Bicentennial Day. Here we see the Gallupville House open in front for the first time in several years. Well, we had people going in and out, and we had refreshments down here, downstairs. I remember that, the committee did. Here's a Balloon Day starting at 9 a.m. I went over and took a picture over at the municipal building that morning at 9 o'clock, and here they are all setting up and getting ready. Here's the balloon all inflated and ready at 9:30 a.m. in the morning.
There you go.
Instead the school band was here, and instead of the school band marching in the parade, that was the only band, they decided they'd place that up by the Gallupville House here, and the groups played there while the parade came down through the village and down around Factory Street and back up School Street. Here we are There we are, another picture waiting for the parade. It's about the same.
This is right in front of the Gallupville House here, and there's the corner store.
Now here's the Grand Marshal, was a former village resident, William Claus Jr., and his parade horse Rex. He's followed by his 2 young daughters on their horses.
There you go.
The parade they organized up on Tryon's Flats and came all the way down through the village. The Middleburg Fire Department truck.
Now, this is the front porch of Gallupville House, and this is the corner, and the corner store would be back off the page here.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're going to go straight down
That's
Factory
right.
Street. All right.
That's the way they did it. Incidentally, I was up in a corner store on the side there with the door open, and I took these pictures. I wasn't in the parade, I was taking pictures.
All right. Try.
And here's the old Model T. It's driven by Maynard Brooks of Schenectady. His wife is in front with him. And in back are 3 of the older residents of the town.
All right.
Mr. and Mrs. Adam Manchester.
There we go.
He was dressed in his American Legion uniform. And Mrs. Edward Cornwell is on the far side.
Right there.
And she was a little girl that I mentioned sometime before that was on the porch of the old
She's the
hotel.
little girl we saw on the front porch. Isn't that amazing?
Now she's...
Riding by in class and style.
That's right.
There you go.
And here's in front of the corner store after the parade is over, passing balloons out to the kids.
Everybody got a balloon.
And one last picture. It's the Spencer Clydesdales. I don't just know where that man came from, over Montgomery County, I think. And he went around to all such functions. And he run a shuttle wagon for the day between the Galllupville House and the lower end of the village. People would travel back and forth. As I mentioned before, the Galllupville House was open. There was crafts going on in there. I was up there with my tool collection of old Americana tools set up, and out in front here on the side was a man hewing timbers for a demonstration.
Wonderful.
And I remember that.
More people in Galluppville than we've ever seen before
Yeah.
or since. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Now that's 1976, and we got to continue on with a little more history. Starting in 1977, I'd done considerable research work in order to get the Galllupville House, the Becker Stone House, and the Edward Westfall brick house at Shutters Corners placed on the National Register of Historic Places. It was better to have more than one in the community. It took about 2 years